How does a character that was planned from the very beginning of the game disappear just days before his release? A character that has years of development, official trailers, music, merchandise, and a release date already announced. Then only days later, his launch was cancelled. Since then, the Love and Deepspace community has been asking one question. Is Valko really gone? Or is this story not over yet? Hello my puppies and kittens, it is Anna Wolf Hero. If you've been following my channel, then you know I love to talk about storytelling, character writing and design, and of course, Love and Deepspace. But today's video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of reviewing a character or analyzing a relationship, today I want to put together the entire timeline surrounding Valko. Over the last several weeks, there has been an incredible amount of information shared across the community. Some of it comes directly from Paper Games, some of it comes from community observations and theories, and some of it's simply my own analysis after following everything that happened. So, throughout the video, I'm going to separate everything into three categories. Confirmed, which is information officially announced by Paper Games or otherwise publicly confirmed. Community discussion, reports, observations, and theories being shared by player community. And my analysis, my own thoughts and interpretations. I think separating these three categories is really important because it lets us all know and understand what's confirmed, what's still uncertain, and what we're simply trying to piece together. So, let's start from the very beginning. Who is Valko? Earlier in June this year, Love and Deepspace officially revealed its sixth love interest, Valko. Right away, he stood out from the rest of the cast. Unlike the other love interests, Valko combined several completely different roles into one character. By day, he was presented as the CEO of a technological company. He was also shown to be an engineer, someone deeply involved in creating high advanced technological feats. But that wasn't all. At night, he becomes a vigilante of some sort, fighting wanderers while hiding his identity from the world. And perhaps the biggest surprise of all, he wasn't just human. Valko was revealed to be a werewolf. The moment players saw the transformation, social media exploded. Some people immediately fell in love with his design, others were simply excited about the game and finally introducing a sixth love interest after so much anticipation. Based on promotional material, we slowly started to learn more about Valko. His personality appeared confident, proud, and a little stubborn, but also surprisingly very gentle whenever he interacted with MC. One line that immediately caught the community's attention was the way he reacted towards MC's scent. Instead of treating her like everyone else, he seemed strangely drawn towards her, almost as if there was something familiar about her. That single detail sparked hundreds of theories almost overnight. As more promotional content released, Paper Games also announced Valko's release date, July 9th. Players expected the usual rollout: character trailers, cards, events, unlimited banners, myths, merchandise. Everything seemed to be following the normal pattern that previous love interest had followed for their debut. One date that many players still talk about is June 22nd. According to publicly available records discussed by the community, Valko's trademark remained active. To many players, this suggests that Valko wasn't simply an experimental idea, he was part of a much larger long-term plan, as Love and Deepspace had put in their posts. June 27. Then, roughly 3 days before everything changed, Paper Games released an official statement. In the statement, they explained something incredibly important. Valko had not been created recently. He had been planned from the very beginning of Love and Deepspace. He wasn't an afterthought, he wasn't a last-minute addition. According to the statement, he had been part of the game long-term planning all along. For many fans, this brought relief, because despite the growing controversy, Paper Games' message gave people confidence that Valko's release would continue. But unfortunately, that confidence wouldn't last very long. As excitement continued to grow, so did the controversy. Different groups within the community strongly disagreed about Valko's release. Reports began circulating online describing harassment directed towards members of the development team, There were also reports claiming that cow manure had been sent to Paper Game's office. Another major topic of discussion centered around the allegations involving Unit 731 and Valko's lore. Those allegations spread quickly across Chinese social media and became one of the biggest points of controversy surrounding the character. Because of how much information was spreading at once, it became difficult for players outside China to know exactly what was happening, what was confirmed, what was rumored, and what was simply speculation. Then the announcement arrived. Paper Games officially announced that Valko's launch on June 30th and further development would be cancelled. For many players, this came as a complete shock. Only days earlier, Paper Games had publicly stated that Valko had been planned since the beginning of the game. Now, his launch was gone, his further development was gone, and the community was left wondering, what happened? When Paper Games announced that Valko's launch and further development had been cancelled, many players thought the story had come to an end. But instead, it was only the beginning. The announcement spread incredibly fast, not just through China, but across the entire Love and Deepspace community. Players in North America, Europe, Latin America, Southern East Asia, and many other regions all began asking the same question: why? The response from the community was unlike anything I had seen before in Love and Deepspace. Instead of simply moving on, many fans decided they wanted to support Valko. Support projects began appearing everywhere. Players organized community events, fan artists continued drawing Valko, discussion groups stayed active, and many players wanted to show support not only for the character, but also for the developers who had spent years working on him. And henceforth began the Valko boycott. One story that really stood out to me involved players trying to send flowers to the development team. The goal wasn't to pressure them, and it wasn't to attack them, it was simply to thank them for all the work they had done and had put into Valko. However, according to the community's reports, security often refused to accept these deliveries. Many fans believe that it was because the community had already experienced harassment during the controversy. The staff wanted to be extra cautious about anything being delivered to the office. Whether that's the exact reason or not hasn't been officially explained, but it shows how intense the situation has become. What surprised me the most was just how global the support became. Fans organized Valko billboards in multiple countries: Mexico, the United States, Singapore, parts of Europe, and even mainland China. They weren't official advertisements from Paper Games, they were created and funded by fans who wanted to show their appreciation for Valko and their hope that one day he might return. For me, that says a lot about how strongly people connected with the character who wasn't even fully released. The next date on our timeline was July 9th. This was supposed to be Valko's official debut. But July 9th looked very different from what players had expected. When players updated the game, they noticed something unusual. The download size was extremely large, much larger than many people expected based on the content that was still available that would continue forward with the update without Valko. After the update finished, the biggest visible addition was a reflectively small kitchen feature along with bug fixes. For many players, that immediately raised questions. This became one of the biggest discussions in the community. If the visible content was relatively small, why was the update so large? Many players began looking for possible explanations. Some believed the game still contained content that simply wasn't being shown. Others thought the files could be related to future updates, and some believed it was simply a technological change to the game's system. And at this point, Paper Games has not officially explained why the update was so large, so everything beyond the update size itself remained speculation. Another thing that was happening as well involving the game's event schedule. Since the cancellation announcement, Love and Deepspace had continued running rerun events. The game has also continued receiving smaller updates focusing on fixing bugs and improving stability. However, there has not been a brand new limited banner announced. Not for Valko and not for any of the existing love interests either. Normally players are used to a certain rhythm. A limited banner ends, there might be a short break, and then another new limited banner is announced. This time the pattern appears to have changed. One example many fans point out is Raphael. Many players expected his next Myth banner to be announced by now. Instead, the schedule has remained focused on reruns and has gone silent. This has led to one of the biggest theories surrounding Valko's situation. Some players believe Valko's planned release schedule was deeply connected to future banner schedules. According to discussions within the community and observations shared by some game developers, talking generally about live service game development, removing a major character from a release roadmap could require extensive changes behind the scenes. If Valko's events, myth cards, story chapters, and future banners were already integrated into the game's schedule, then changing the schedule might take significant work. Because of that, some fans believe that the lack of new limited banners could mean that developers are reorganizing future content. Others believe the reruns simply give the development team more time to prepare upcoming updates. At this point, Paper Games has not officially confirmed why the current schedule looks different, so this remains one of the community's biggest ongoing theories. This is one of the reasons I've continued following the story so closely. When I look at everything together, the official statement saying Valko had been planned from the beginning, the cancellation wording, the unusually large update, the continued reruns, and the lack of new limited banners. I understand why so many players feel like this might still be something more to this story. At the same time, I also think it's important not to jump to conclusions. There could be many reasons for the current schedule we simply do not know yet. And that's why I always try to separate confirmed information from community theories. So why does all of this leave us today? We've gone from excitement to controversy to an official cancellation and now a month of questions. At the moment, Love and Deepspace is still running. Players are still logging in every day, those who are not part of the boycott or who just log in to get their requirements since they paid for their monthly subscription in a way. No new limited banners have appeared. Instead, the game has continued relying primarily on reruns and is currently blank. One detail continues to stand out to many players in the wording of Paper Games' official announcement of his cancellation. It was that the further launch and development of the new love interest was cancelled. The wording has become one of the biggest talking points within the community. Why? Because it specifically mentions his launch and further development. It does not explicitly state that Valko as a character has been permanently erased from the game forever. Now that does not automatically mean he will return, but it explains why so many fans continue to discuss of the possibility. Another date that many players have been watching closely is July 29th. Within the community, there has been discussions about this date that could mark an important moment for the future communication of Paper Games. As we know, the Chinese government was involved with Paper Games when this controversy first began. Now that they have cleared Valko's name in official statements from the Chinese government, there has been a gag, kind of like a punishment. So they have to be without a month of promotion or a month of saying anything in order to kind of serve their penalty. So many fans believe it could be when developers are finally able to make large announcements again. Other things, it might simply be another normal update. As of today, there has been no official confirmation about what, if anything, will be announced on that day. So for now, it remains something the community is watching with great interest. So why do people still believe Valko could return? It's not because of one single clue, it's because of everything together. The official statement says that he has been planned since the beginning. The active trademark, the amount of promotional material that has already been released, the large game update, the continued reruns, the absence of a new limited banner, the worldwide fan support, the flowers, the billboards, the letters, and the simple fact that so much work had already gone into creating this character. For many players, those pieces create a picture that feels unfinished. Whether the picture is accurate or not, only Paper Games knows. Now I'd like to share my own thoughts. This is just my opinion. You're completely free to argue with me whether you agree or disagree. Personally, I don't think the situation is as simple as saying Valko is gone forever. At the same time, I also don't think it's fair to tell people that his return is guaranteed. Right now, we simply don't know. What I do know is that Paper Games themselves said Valko had been planned since the very beginning of Love and Deepspace. This tells me he wasn't just another event. He was part of a much larger vision for the game's story, and because of that, I understand why so many fans continue hoping. As a fan, there are a few things I'm hoping for. First, I hope the developers are okay. No matter what side someone is on, harassment is never acceptable. Developers, artists, writers, voice actors, directors are people. Second, I hope the community can continue supporting the game in positive ways. One of the things that has inspired me the most has been seeing fans choosing kindness instead of how the antis chose violence. Many of those have chosen to organize support projects, create petitions, donate to centers for wolf sanctuaries, for women's safety, for children's safety programs, writing letters, creating artwork, sending flowers, and even attempting to send flowers to developer teams themselves. This kind of support says so much about this community. Finally, I hope that whatever happens, we eventually receive a clear communication from Paper Games, whether Valko returns or whether he doesn't. I think players deserve to understand what happened and what is the future of the game looks like. I think it's easy to look at this and say it's just a game, but stories matter, characters, communication matters. For many people, Love and Deepspace isn't just something they played for a few minutes each day. It's a story they invested in, a world that has become an attached part of their lives, a place where they have met friends, shared experiences, and have felt a safe space. That's why this situation has affected so many people. It's not just about one character, it's about trust, communication, and the relationship between developers, business, and the community. Is Valko coming back? The honest answer is, I don't know. Right now, there are official facts, there are community theories, and personal opinions. Whether most of us hope for his return, like many of us, and myself included, there is also the possibility of him not returning. But until then, Paper Games has to make an official announcement for this, and that's where we are right now. But one thing is certain, Valko has already left a lasting impact on Love and Deepspace, even without officially debuting. He has become one of the most talked about characters in the game's history. And that's something very few characters can say. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think Valko will eventually return, or do you think that June 30th announcement was the end of his story? Of course, remember to keep everything respectful in the discussions and focus on facts, the community, and our shared love for the game. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more Love and Deepspace news, theories, character analysis, storytelling discussions, and even Minecraft role-playing content inspired by these characters, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I will continue covering any major official updates as they happen. Now, to get into the topic, I saw a lot of you comment on my last video because I had mentioned that I have an Ultima game in development. And I'm excited to say I have a roadmap, I have characters done. I do not have their designs done, but I know their personalities, everything before drawing them. And I'm super excited. If you guys are interested in hearing more and even want to get into following me in this development of this Ultima game, which I promise you 100% it's not going to be like Paper Games. If I have haters and they're just hating on a character and not because, oh, I forgot a chapter of an episode and I maybe should keep updating main story and I'm screwing up in the content, I'm not going to listen to them. Trust me. This is my story, my content, and obviously I'll try to keep the children out of it. I saw the whole controversy recently and I'm like, of course it had to be. But I hope I see you guys later, and until next time, and a Wolf Hero out.